Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for dialing in, listening in, and or watching this podcast. For those of you that are not familiar with our podcasts, my name is Matt Stringer. I'm the Chief Exec here at the Education Showroom. But if you are a regular listener, which I'm hoping you are, or become, I'm delighted to introduce this week's special guest company. And as you can see on the screen, individuals. We are honored to be joined for this week's podcast by Discovery Education. And we're going to be talking about a really interesting topic today, which is supporting great teaching, how adaptive learning impacts classroom practice. So that title again, supporting great teaching, how adaptive learning impacts classroom practice. Few intros. We're going to quickly go around the podcast room, starting with Andrew. Andrew, welcome. We'd love to learn a little bit about yourself, sir.
Hi there. Yes, so I'm Andrew Tidswell and I'm Director of Professional Development here at Discovery Education, which means I lead all the work that we do with educators anywhere outside the United States where Discovery Education is based. So I work with teachers in all kinds of different settings. I've been privileged to work at Ministry of Education level, like the projects we led in Egypt, where we trained all 200,000 teachers in Egypt to implement new national curriculum, but also I get into real schools and work with real teachers on a regular basis. I've been in a session just this week, and 36 years now and counting in education. And my first class of students turned 48 this year, which is terrifying.
Lovely. Tell you did a lot for a 21-year-old, Andrew. That's amazing. Thanks very much indeed. We'll flip to the other side of my screen. Ellie, welcome. We'd love to learn about yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me and us. So I'm Ellie and I'm a Senior School Success Advisor for Discovery Education. So I'm a former teacher and what I do now is I look after all the schools that have a Discovery Education subscription. So help with any kind of tech questions or how to use them in the classroom. So bringing that pedagogy into that side as well. And that's me.
That's great. Well, it's going to be great to hear from you today, especially with the title, Ellie, which is how to get the most out of the adaptive side and the features and the functionality of your company and products. So I'm sure you'll bring a huge amount today. So I'm excited. That's great. Sophie, good afternoon. Sophie, the only person here with a white background. I'm loving it. I love that individual approach.
I obviously did not get the memo, sorry. Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm the curriculum manager at Discovery, specifically for dual learning. And so, yeah, I've been working in the education sector for about 15 years now, much of that as a classroom teacher. And now I lead the curriculum for Doodle. So I work with lots of content writers, content specialists, and then also really closely with our product development team and the design team and customer insight team.
Great, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed. Last but by no means least, my fellow headset wearer, Ian. Good afternoon. Great to see you.
Good afternoon, Matt. Lovely to be here. Thank you so much. So I'm a professional development and learning advisor, part of Andrew's team here at Discovery Education, former head teacher, former primary teacher of 25 years, former Doodle champion as well. And I now go around the United Kingdom delivering professional development for schools, working with schools, helping them make the most of our products from a school improvement perspective. And it's the best job in the world.
Yeah. Let me know when you've got some jobs going. I'll send over my CV.
And then want to note he said that with me as his boss.
Did know that.
I want everybody to have that on record.
Yeah, just post it now. Yeah, there we go. Got that. Thank you. Great. We're going to dive in to the first of our kind of, let's say, scene setting debate questions. Again, how adaptive learning impacts classroom practice is what we're going to double down on now and really focus on. So the first question I'm going to pose to everyone, and anyone who would like to take the lead, feel free. What is the challenge, the problem, the obstacle, the hurdle that schools and MATs have in regards to being adaptive and trying to put an adaptive strategy in place to best support students, but also staff? So I guess, what are those obstacles on a class by class, day by day, term by term, minute by minute basis? Who would like to get us started? Feel free.
I'm happy to kick off with the kind of big picture element of it. I think it's that traditional thing that we've always experienced in education, but it's become more of a focus over the last few years and more challenging for everybody. And that's the ability to try to identify and close gaps, which puts us all under pressure and provides all of us with a challenge, particularly over the last couple of years. But then fundamentally, it's also about how we secure understanding of key concepts, key skills right across the curriculum, but of course, particularly in core settings, so that we know that children have the skills that they need to apply that to learning in other areas of the curriculum. Because I think classroom focus is now so much on building a much rounded, more rounded student and building skills alongside the conceptual understanding. But then also there's that third and final challenge of how do we stretch on students? How do we get them to greater depth? How do we get them to have push them on when they're more able? So I kind of reduce it down to three things really. It's closing gaps, securing understanding, and stretching. And I think that's what we hear all of the time. And that's very much what fits into that world of adaptive learning, in the sense that we have to meet children where they are. And that might be gaps in some areas that they need securing, and sometimes even areas that they need challenging, all with the same individual pupil that's experiencing all those things across the curriculum. So that's the challenge we're here. And as teachers, we want to make sure we're doing that with our pupils, but it's exceptionally complex and time consuming to be able to try to do that with them as a solitary classroom teacher, or maybe with some classroom support. To be able to do all of that is so complex.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think from my perspective as well, what I hear a lot, Andrew, I mean, all the years that you and I have known each other, but when I first started helping schools and multi-academy trusts all those years ago, it was all about attainment, attainment, attainment. Now I hear engagement. I hear identifying needs. Every learner is different, requiring products, strategies, intervention tools to support learners, whoever they are, wherever they're from, regardless of their age, and all of those other key parts. But to have products that first and foremost start with being engaging and being exciting and being adaptive, rather than it being obsessed with attainment. Are you experiencing similar things, Andrew?
Absolutely, we are, and I think Ellie and Ian, particularly in that kind of day-to-day contact they have with schools, kind of hear those stories all the time. So I don't know if perhaps Ellie's got some recent stories to share with us of conversations you probably had over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems to be a common theme coming out. We're a long way away from that one size fits all approach to education. It is very much about the individual needs of the children, and that's essentially what teachers want to do as well, despite all these pressures to find solutions, to keep up with new initiatives and technologies and things like that. And as on top of that, the curriculum changes that are about to happen as well.
Yeah.
They just care about providing the best for each individual child. And that is where that adaptation comes in. They need to be completely flexible for these diverse student groups that we're getting now. If we're thinking about not just socioeconomic differences, but also with refugees coming into the country more often now.
Yeah.
All these things are building on top of the fact that all these children are completely individual. They have different needs, they have different wants, they have different interests, and a classroom can't look the same as the classroom down the hall. So it's about finding things to help with that.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
I think also it's largely on time. I mean, Andrew mentioned time just now, time and resources. I mean, years gone by, we would have had plenty of additional adult support in the classroom, but we just don't have that now. So
Yeah.
for those teachers to be able to achieve that when they want to is really, really difficult.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah. Being able to, with lesser staff or limited, being able to almost replicate yourself several times to be everywhere within a classroom. We know it's unrealistic. It can't be done. That's really interesting. And just going back, Andrew, you and I again, the word progress stands out again as another, I would say, scale that has moved in my experience. Again, tying this back to the word adaptive, the theme of today, progress. Again, when I first started supporting schools and maths, school and math leaders would say progress, again, aligned with attainment. They started here and they're going here, or we'd like them to go here, or we've got strategies to get them here. But now we hear more about progress. Well, what is progress? Progress isn't just your starting point and where you may finish at the end of primary school or secondary school, but progressing engagement and enthusiasm and desire and that want and love to learn, just as much emphasis and importance of starting at those points. Ellie, from a working with schools, as Andrew said, day in, day out, is that kind of aligned with what you're seeing, you're hearing, where that demand is? It's not necessarily about we start here and there. It's the behaviors. It's getting the children excited and getting them, through having different adaptive strategies and approaches. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, exactly. I've been speaking to quite a few teachers recently, in particular, who one in particular was talking about spelling and how they want to have that time to revisit these different areas to really secure those spelling knowledge and spelling skills. But it's with every child at a completely different place. They want to be able to have that kind of adaptive approach to it, to know that they're getting what they need with it. And you're right, it's not just about are they going from step to step to step. It's about getting them engaged with it. So they want to engage with that learning on a kind of wider picture. They're revisiting stuff because they enjoy learning. It's not just because they have to. So you're building that engagement, but you're also making sure that those skills and that knowledge is becoming really secure. It's not just we've done it once, we've got to move on, because we all know that the curriculum has a lot of pressure on being overloaded as well. So yeah, that engagement side of it thing is really key as well, to make sure that they are actually wanting to keep learning and it's not just a tick and it's done, they've made that step.
Yeah. Sophie, what about yourself from a curriculum side of things in regards to the adaptive and the importance of designing and executing a curriculum that does include progress, attainment, and then those fundamentals at the beginning that we're all debating about, the enthusiasm and the excitement and what the want to learn? What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I was thinking then the whole time we were talking about engagement, is that I think that's a really sort of tricky word to define in a way, and it's really important. I think that engagement comes from learning and the desire to learn and feeling like you've achieved something in that, rather than kind of it being all, whizzes and bangs, which I feel like kind of maybe particularly early in my own career, I felt like that's how I knew that children were engaged, if I was doing something sort of fancy at the front then. And you quite quickly learn that that's not what it is. I think that is something really interesting, probably good debate what engagement looks like for ages, which is actually what we do quite a lot here anyway. But in terms of sort of how we look at an adaptive program, how we build the program out, I think progression is really key. Prerequisites are a massive thing that we look at all the time. That constant ability to revisit is so important. And moving that learning into the long-term memory is such a difficult step to take. It's exactly like Ellie was saying, we've all been in a lesson where you feel like, yeah, great, we've got this. And then you revisit it in a week and it seems to have dropped off, like you've never taught it. And I think having time to embed that, and, that's something that teachers have always been short of, unfortunately. And, I think teachers, if they could split themselves into 30 different teachers and be there sitting with each child, that's the dream, isn't it? But that's...
I think you may have just designed the next podcast, Sophie. What is engagement? So thank you for that. I hope you haven't patented it. I'll take that. The next question for discussion and debate today, I think, is perfectly kind of placed now, is what are schools and multi-academy trusts trying to do themselves to increase, to improve, to have an adaptive strategy in the classroom, to have this versatility, a way that engages, excites, drives progression, improves attainment? What are schools and MATs doing? What are they telling you guys they're doing? What are they sharing? What are you observing? Ian, Andrew, when you're on the road a lot, what are you seeing, the questions that you're asking? Ellie, from your speaking to 50 schools a day, every day, I'm sure, what are they saying when they are trying to combat this area themselves without perhaps external expertise? What are they doing?
I think that point that Sophie was kind of alluding to there as well, about when we talk about securing understanding, and whether that's securing the understanding whilst you're closing a gap, whilst you're being stretched on, or whether you're just consolidating those core skills. I think one of the things that often comes up is what does that look like in terms of the long-term approach? And very often the traditional way would be to look at how can we provide homework? How can we provide a solution that means that children are doing additional practice beyond what we've done in the classroom? I'll let you into a secret that I think many of us share. I hated giving out homework when I was still full time in the classroom because very often it became something of a challenge to find an appropriate worksheet, send it out, make sure it got home, that it was found buried at the bottom of a book bag a few days too late. The parents didn't understand what the task was, the child had forgotten what the task was. Then they finally had to complete it, bring it back into school, wait for a lazy teacher like me to actually get round to mark it before they got any feedback. And often then that activity was purely about what we did this week in the maths classroom, for example. And like Sophie said, that whole point about we've done it this week and I'm really satisfied that most of you have got all the answers right at the end of this week. That's it, we're done, we're secure. And then 2 weeks later, we need to use that skill and 5 more children have dropped off the list and then another 6 or 7 have forgotten it later on. And so that ability to spiral around and see things regularly. So for me, schools are looking for ways that they can be more effective with how they use homework, and also that kind of constant debate around, we're never satisfied. We're either there's too much homework being given out or not enough homework being given out, and definitely is that homework of value. So schools are looking for and using multiple strategies for how they support children away from the classroom. And I know we see that in lots of different settings and lots of different ways. But for me, the key is being given the children to have that agency over their own learning, so as to Sophie's point and Ellie's points, that they are engaged and they are motivated, because we would always look at rewarding effort rather than attainment, and looking at how can you provide a solution that means that individual child is going, here's something that's motivating for me. So schools have lots and lots of different strategies about after school clubs that provide support, breakfast clubs where they're doing activity initially, developing libraries to encourage children to do additional reading material, so that they've got lots of ways of saying to the children, here are opportunities for you to take control of your own learning, because learning's something you do, it's not something you sit back and receive. And so it's how they're doing that, really.
It's really interesting. Ian, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Andrew, absolutely right. I mean, I'm having lots of conversations in schools about those kinds of things and how they bring in some of those external tools, some of those digital tools to support that. Because
Yeah,
in the way that education is going, obviously there's lots and lots of digital tools being incorporated.
yeah,
And it's about schools finding the right solution for them.
yeah.
It's about finding something which fits their budget, but also at the same time maximizes the impact in terms of attainment and progress over time. Buzzwords in the education landscape. So it's finding those tools in order to be able to do that. But also, have the schools got the devices from a digital perspective? Have the schools got the devices to achieve that from a school improvement perspective? Because lots of schools are incredibly tech poor. So actually,
Yeah.
is there the ability to fulfill that need for the children, to give them the opportunity to do that within school time, and then to build that community, that kind of learning community with the parents, so that actually everyone is buying into the children being able to make the progress and attainment that they need.
That's really interesting. There's a couple of things there, which I've mentally noted. The first one is you were reading my mind, because I was going to comment about the products. But the second thing I just want to start off with first, because it's super quick and easy, is you're talking about a culture. To actually have a top to bottom, left to right, up down culture around what needs to be done, the strategies, the execution, the products, the tech. As you said, some schools are tech rich, some schools are tech poor in terms of devices, the standard of devices. So a culture of all in, how do we design a strategy to be an adaptive school or multi-academy trust? But the point that you made about technology, I just want to pick up and share again a personal experience. Ellie, I used to do a similar role to what you're currently doing for many, many years, and I loved it. And a very, very common 2 or 3 times a day, every day, comments from school and MAT leaders was, I never knew that product could do that. Or, yeah, I do remember. I do remember receiving training on that. And I've either never done it like that, or, to be honest, Matt, it's kind of gone to the back of my mind. Or the ability for a school to creatively and proactively go, well, we've got this fabulous solution. Do you know what? We could actually try and use it like this. And those types of comments and feedback I used to get, as I said, on a daily basis. So I think, just going back to your point, Ian, what I learned, again, going back to the question, which is what our schools and Matt's trying to do, have done, are striving to do, to be adaptive in their schools and Matt's, is making the most of the technology, as well as buying or identifying on the market what's right for them. And as you quite rightly said, Ian, what is affordable, but actually making the most of what they've got and being able to use the features, functionality, not occasionally, but frequently. Being able to be well supported, well trained. It's like anything, isn't it? If you've got a car on the drive that you only use 10% of the time, the chances are you're not going to keep it for long because the money's dead and you could use that money from selling the car elsewhere. If you've got a product that is only being used 10 to 20% of its capabilities, and it's got 70 to 80% more of what you could do with it, where you could take it, how impactful it could be, how adaptive it could be, how it could be used. Game-changing stuff. Ellie, what's your thoughts on my comment there?
Yeah, I was going to say that really resonates, especially with a couple of Matts that I have been working with, building in that idea of that, having that network and that collaboration so that schools and teachers can see how these things can be used in different ways. So I've hosted Q&A drop-in sessions for across a Matt, and they just pop in, they say, this is working for me, this isn't working for me, and they're getting ideas from each other as well as how to use it. And you kind of got that built-in network if you're part of a Matt. So having that collaboration as part of that community as well to help see all of those opportunities with these solutions that can be put in place is I think is really important for making the most of this as well.
I'll share this with you, Ellie, as well. We're working with a client at the moment that are I would say, for their new product, and it is a new product, it's only been on the market around 6 months. They are trying to roll out the training, the CPD, very differently to what I've seen for over a decade. So rather than it being hi, we're going to teach you how to use the product online or in person, they're actually aligning what they show the staff with specific types of student requirements. Let me give you an example. EAL. So should a school have, English as an additional language students, and maybe there are language requirements, language differences, they would say, right, let me show you the product, and I'm going to double down and focus on how it would best suit EAL learners. SEND learners, then at a different day at a different time, this is how you stretch and challenge your top end. This is what it would look like. This is how. So rather than it being what I used to receive, and to be fair, what I used to give schools and Matts, which retrospectively could have been a lot better. Now we've got these types of insights. I used to have it's an A to Z, and I'm going to train you on how to do everything. But this company is like, no. We're going to make it situational. We're going to go, do you have this, Mr. or Mrs. Head Teacher or Matt Leader? Does this resonate? Do you have this in your school? If not, we're not going to cover it. If so, we're going to spend a good amount of time on it. We're going to master to the mastery levels. We're going to show you how to use it in different situations, different types of learners, etc., etc. Is that type of approach something you're thinking about, Ellie?
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly how we run all of our sessions as well. So they are not just reading from a script at all. We talk to the schools, especially when they are a new school with us as well. We will have a one-to-one launch meeting with them and then do a wider staff meeting if they need as well. And we really focus on what they want to get from the product, but also what their situation is. What kind of students do they have? So, for example, the Matt that I just mentioned, they are using it for disadvantaged PP students, quite specifically, and Summerborn. So they've got a very targeted group of students that they're using Doodle for. And so there's no point me telling them some things about what's on the teacher dashboard, that kind of thing. It's all about giving them the information that's actually going to be useful for them, for their specific situation, and also for the schools to know that they are supported with that. We care and we are knowledgeable about these situations as well. We're not just here to tell them the same thing that we tell every single school. And both Ian and Andrew, when they go in and do their sessions in person as well, they are always adapting them to what the school needs, what they're hoping to achieve with it, their location, which can vary how things are approached as well. So it's about us being adaptive as well, not just the program.
Yeah, thanks, Ellie. And going back to Ian and Andrew, just a question and, an angle that Ellie's just touched on. When you are visiting schools in person, when you're on the road, how much are schools taken on board what other schools are trying to do, have done, ideas, brainstorming? What is that still a hot thing? It was when I was supporting schools. Is that still a big thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're notorious thieves as teachers anyway, aren't we? We love stealing ideas from each other. We're like magpies. We go and grab a shiny idea from over here and use it ourselves. So that kind of tested and trusted track record in other places is important. And therefore, again, that communication and networking across other schools helps. And I think that whole approach about adapting to the circumstances of the individual school. But there's a couple of things that kind of resonate from that fit into this question, but I think pull a few things together as well. Ian will be sick of me saying this, but I often talk about what I call digital yogurt pots. Is if we give a primary school classroom teacher a yogurt pot and say to them, use that in your classroom for the rest of the year, they can use it in infinite different ways. They know they'll put counters for a shaker for a dice, they'll use it as a communication device, put it on a rocket, whatever it would be, they can use and adapt that resource. What we don't always do with digital products is adapt them. And so to your point, Matt, we don't then say, I need to do it. I need to use this product to do that, to solve that problem. So like Ellie said, to focus in on a very specific group of children, or to then use it in a different way with another group of children that we're targeting. And so that ability to be flexible is really important. And so that whole adaptive approach to the way that a digital resource is being used is essential, because it should bend to us, not the other way around. And if we overtrain, then people are kind of looking, well, how do I fit in time to do that? No, it's what's it going to do? What's it going to do for you is the really essential part about that. And I think also making sure that schools themselves, we see the really successful schools are the ones that make a very strong strategic commitment to what one or two particular approaches, rather than saying, let's grab this solution and then give it to people and hope that it works. It has to be a little bit more strategic than that. And so again, those conversations that Ellie has on that daily basis with the schools she supports, or that we have when we go in face to face, is what are you trying to get out of this, and how are you going to achieve it? What are the steps that are going to measure that success? And there is that element of, dare I say it, the carrot and stick. Is I quite often say to teachers, if you put this on the nice to look at pile, you never get to it. I think I last got to my nice to look at pile when I was in school in about 1997. You always have things that supersede that. If it moves across on the I must do this pile, then you get on and do it. So if it's deliberately going towards a school objective, something that you're trying to achieve collectively, then you're going to get the best out of the resources that you choose to buy into, whether those are low cost and straightforward or highly expensive and weaving across all aspects of the curriculum. Doesn't matter. You have to show that commitment from a leadership perspective and an individual class teacher perspective, and then hopefully wider out into the community, how the parents and families understand what's going on. So there's a whole network of things that happen to ensure that success with any solution we're looking to achieve.
That's interesting. And Sophie, from your past experience, your current experience, working with schools, designing curriculum, optimizing the curriculum, what kind of feedback, comments do you hear from schools giving you feedback on the curriculum? And I'm sure your relationship with Ellie is clearly critical here, between the information that you're receiving, giving, and communication channels. From your perspective, Sophie, what does that, school feedback, what are they trying to do themselves on the ground in the school or Matt feel like?
I think, well, I mean, there's obviously a lot being covered already on this front. I think, like you said, the feedback from Ellie and Ian, well, and Andrew, but it is crucial for us, and that wanting things to be more flexible is something I think that we've noticed growing more and more, and how we adapt to that as a company and as a product. And it can be small things, like there might be feedback from teachers saying, that they're teaching this and actually they want to include this step and we don't have anything that covers that, and then we can add that into our curriculum if it's kind of suits the progression and it meets a need that we feel is there. But it can be adapting how the product actually works so that it does meet teachers' needs. So I think that is something that it gets communicated really well from the schools team, of like, what is it actually like on the ground? So I think that's something that we all need to be aware of. When you're out of the classroom, it is different, and you can never really quite replicate that feeling of being there day to day. So I think having that communication come through is so, so important.
Yeah.
and trying to listen and respond to as much as we can, really.
Yeah. Final question for the group before we move on to almost our last section to the podcast today is, and I'm just going to challenge something I've previously said. So my point is, are you hearing, experiencing, again, same question, what schools and Mats are trying to do? Are schools and Mats trying to have products that can do more but not having multiple products to deliver them? So in other words, are they wanting a product or a small suite of products which can do everything or a lot of things, not necessarily everything, but a lot of things? Or are they wanting to have specific products to solve specific problems? When I was in your shoes, Ellie, and a long time ago, it was specific products to solve specific problems. But I'm sure that's not the case anymore because of budget restraints, a huge amounts of technology, and with huge amounts to choose from becomes huge amounts of confusion and spoilt for choice. Some would say an avalanche of technology in the last decade. I've heard that language used by schools and Mats. But open question, what are you hearing school and Mat leaders want from a product?
I think it's a
Ian?
bit of
Yeah.
it's a bit of a balance, really. They either have a very specific need that they're trying to solve. So are they trying to look at maths specifically? Are they looking at SEN pupils specifically? In which case they do want that hyper-specific product, which will do what it needs to do for that particular issue. But then again, like budgets are proving so tricky that if they're looking for things which are kind of more widespread, it does come down to cost a lot of the time. Like, is it answering those kind of really key things that they're having to focus on? So I think from what I'm hearing, a lot of it is they need this specific thing from this side thing rather than a kind of more broad approach to something.
And is Ian, Andrew, from your different perspective, going and rolling out training, implementing, what do you guys, what are you hearing from schools and Mats?
Well, I think there's an element, Ellie's absolutely right with what she just said there. And there's an element that what a school ideally wants is a product or a small suite of products that can kind of keep things on a level with a range of different options. But when they need to switch on a particular focus point on SEND or pupil premium or whatever else it might be, that they can use it to address a specific need. And then when they've progressed on that, they've identified something else, they can also use it to try to address those needs. And so seeing something that has solutions for the immediate problems they have, but at the same time can then see things on the horizon that could support something as they move forward. And certainly for me, particularly because we have the privilege, Ian and I, of being in schools for a longer period of time and being able to spend, a couple of hours in school. Sometimes we're in doing assemblies, we're meeting parents, we're strategizing with leadership teams. And therefore being able to say, let's address the thing that's right in front of us. But as we talk, we can also then say, well, on the horizon, you've got this coming up, and here's the ways that might help as you move forward. So knowing that this solution is something they can carry forward with them, I think is also really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Picking up on what Andrew just said, actually, it's really interesting. What lots of the conversations that Andrew and I are now having is more around, and I kind of touched on this earlier, action planning, school improvement planning. Whereas before, these kind of products, maybe digital learning platforms, were brought into school, as we've said, to address a particular need, a particular subject. Or maybe it's a more broad brush approach. But what schools are now looking at more is how can we incorporate this into our day-to-day teaching? How can we incorporate this into our action planning to have maximum impact so that over time it's really making a difference? And we can also not only justify what we're using, but make sure that the children are getting the right tools to do the job.
Thank you, Ian. That's some great comments there. And we move on to almost the final section of the podcast, which is how you guys, so Discovery Education and the particular product we're going to double down on now, of course, as we can see with the beautiful backgrounds, is Doodle Learning. How is Doodle Learning positively impacting And let's use the word facilitating everything we've spoken about before, creating that impact, the engagement, the exciting, the reporting, the confidence, the training. What does the actual doodle learning, how does it solve the title of today's podcast?
Well, I think we as a company at Discovery Education, we have a whole suite of different products that we use and fits with some of the conversation we've had there about what's the solution you're looking for at this time, what are you trying to achieve. But when we talk about doodle learning in particular, it is that ability to have that adaptive learning that's about engagement across the curriculum. So English and spelling products, maths and times tables products, that means that children are engaged. And we talk, when we go into our assemblies and do sessions with the children themselves, we talk about this idea of little and often, practice that's little and often, that's something you can fit into your day-to-day routine, the way that your family is set up, and every family is different. So you're taking ownership of your learning, but you're doing something that's impacting on the way that you learn and acquire skills and feel more confident in the classroom. So that feeds into your self-esteem. So our doodle learning product is absolutely at the heart of adaptivity, because that's exactly what it's about. But I think Ian's the key man here as a former doodle champion in school and head teacher, using it strategically, and now out in the field working directly with schools. So I'll tee Ian up to kind of give a top to bottom quick summary of everything.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate because I was at the very inception of what was then Doodle Maths 14 years ago, and I had Doodle in my school to support my own children within my own village primary school. Then came full circle and ended up at Discovery Education, working and sort of leading on lots of professional development sessions that involve Doodle learning. And it does an awful lot from a number of different perspectives. From a teaching perspective, absolutely. What Andrew just said, it adapts, personalizes the learning on an individual basis for those children. So the children, once they've had that baseline assessment, that knowledge check, they can then go on and have subsequent questions that are tailored to their level of learning. But also from a teaching perspective, it does allow you to integrate kind of assignments into that, where you're looking at particular needs. So like we've been talking about all the way through, it's kind of addressing all of the areas of the curriculum, and it's aligned to both the maths and English national curriculums. And in doing so, provides that level of learning that the children need, and also addresses those misconceptions. Regardless of where those misconceptions are across the curriculum, it will plug those gaps. And it will plug them until the program feels they're secure. I always talk about the technical wizards in our Bath office on the top floor. I don't work on the top floor, by the way, but in the Bath office, we've got our technical wizards who have created a really clever algorithm which does that adaptation and that personalization for the children. But also, we talked about engagement earlier. And Doodle allows a really, really clear overview of engagement for teaching staff, for senior leaders, provides great amounts of data so that we can have a look at this along the way, look at progress, look at attainment over time, but also allows sort of teachers to flip the learning. So, from a need perspective, we can maybe set an assignment of questions prior to teaching a unit of work. Then we can teach the unit of work once we know what the children know already. Then we can follow that up with the same assignment again, as kind of like a summative assessment piece. So there's an awful lot of flexibility within the Doodle platform, as well, of course, as being incredibly time saving. I mean,
Yeah.
my job now going into schools is to support this. It's to look at it from a school improvement approach. So I used to do the role that Ellie did, which was account management and kind of working with schools, developing those ideas, huge amounts of support, which our SSAs are incredible at doing. And now I get to go in and kind of lead on the professional development side of things. How can we help you make this right for your school? How can we address the needs that you've got with the professional development approach that we can provide so that we build that relationship? Andrew always talks about us kind of it being 3D. The support is 3D within schools. And Andrew and I are there as, if you like, the face of discovery, the face of Doodle, whether it's an assembly to raise engagement for the children and get them excited, whether it's a parent session to build that Doodle community all round so that they're supporting the children's learning, or whether it's working with staff and senior leaders. We're always there to really bring that level of engagement, that level of understanding, but also supporting those individual school needs along the way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know lots and lots of schools and Mats that use Discovery, and one of the key things, you touched on it again, we've touched on it, is they use the word, it's really engaging, the kids love it. I can guarantee you the next few head teachers that I talk to about Discovery, they'll say the same thing, the kids love it. And I'll say, why? And they'll say, because it looks cool. It looks like a product that a child would want to use and ask to use. And I think that goes back to the debate we had earlier. What does engagement look like? Well, it's got to look exciting and appealing and enticing, because that's what a child needs and wants. And it starts like that. And then obviously it goes with usage and all of the things that we've spoken about today. But yeah, I put money on it. The next 10 head teachers I talk to, which their schools have Doodle, they will say, yeah, we love it. The kids love it. Why? Because it just looks so good. But that's a really, really good point. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed today. I think it's been really great. I've loved it. But I'm sure you will want to pick up on some questions, some comments, some statements, some opinions that's been raised today from Ian, Andrew, Sophie, Ellie, and myself. And I would love for you to continue the discussion outside of this podcast. So, team, could I ask you, how can listeners get in touch with you individually, collectively, pick up, debate some of the things that we've spoken about? Perhaps some multi-academy trust leaders and the heads and deputies, maths leads, English leads are thinking, you know what? I want to have a look at Doodle Learning and see if it's great for my school now or from September. How can the people get in touch with you, please?
The easiest way straight away is to go onto our website, first of all, of course, discoveryeducation.co.uk, and that will explain a number of the solutions that are in there, give you the opportunity to get in touch with us directly. If you're already a school that's working with us on some of our products, then you can contact Ellie or one of your own personal school success advisor directly for any advice or support, or to inquire about professional development. If you go on the website as well, you'll also find our professional development support, which we call Classroom Connect, which has a range of options that go beyond simply how do I use a product in the classroom, but actually go into lots of deeper ways of thinking about that, right the way up to us helping you build and develop a conference, if that's going to work for you. So there's a wealth of material on there on our website, discoveryeducation.co.uk, and look for Classroom Connect as one of the options. And whilst I mentioned Classroom Connect, Ian will never forgive me if I don't mention this, and two others have been guests before. We have our own podcast on all the various platforms, and it's also called Classroom Connect. So if you search Classroom Connect on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you use your podcasts, you'll find our podcast presented by Ian and myself. They're usually meant to be about 12 to 15 minutes, like a school playtime, where myself and Ian, like two old fellas in the staff room, chatting about things about what actually goes on in schools and how we can come up with simple solutions. But we also bring in guests from our team and wider. So like I say, both Ellie and Sophie have been great guests on that. So that's another way to engage with us. But yeah, discovereyeducation.co.uk, look at the range of solutions we've got there, get in touch with us, and we'd be more than happy to help you in all kinds of different ways moving forward.
Thanks, Andrew. So, Math leaders and school leaders listening to this podcast, we hope you've enjoyed it. But my question to you is, do you have adaptive classrooms? Do you want to develop and to have a highly adaptive, highly effective classroom? If the answer is yes, please get in touch with Andrew, Ian, Sophie, or Ellie. Thank you, Team Discovery. It's been a pleasure to host you on this week's podcast, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks very much.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Good to see
Nice
you.
to be here. Thank
Cheers.
you.